Morning guys. So in the last classes we have seen this uh, the importance of the improvisation in the designing process. Improvisation in the designing process. In order to improvise the already existing designing model, we have to understand that particular model, and then only we can explore the various kind of solutions actually. For that, I introduced a term called empathize. Empathize in terms of the end user. So end user ന്റെ ആവശ്യം കുറിച്ച് നമ്മൾ കുറച്ച് ഇമ്പോർട്ടൻസ് കൊടുക്കണം. I mean, I introduced varieties of steps actually, varieties of intermediate steps that are required so that we can have an interrogation, thorough researching, thorough interrogation with the end users to understand the problem. One-to-one communication was required. Those things we have already highlighted in the previous classes actually. Ultimate goal is to understand the end user's requirement, right? And then using the data whichever we have collected in the previous research among the the end users, we have to think about the strategies to provide solutions to the particular identified problems from the end user side. For that also we required some interrogation, serious amount of interrogation with the experts, already existing experts, how they solve the problem, what are the unique ways that they are utilizing to solve the their daily problems or their identified problems, something like that. So this particular session, I mean, these two steps actually, these two steps are it requires major amount of brainstorming, right? Major amount of brainstorming with the end users as well as experts to identify the varieties of solutions for the varieties of the problems which we have identified. And these things we have discussed in the in our last 2 or 3 classes actually. And finally, while developing the idea, I suggested strongly you to develop your own idea only. I really don't want you to have a group discussion while you are developing your own idea for the existing problem. I want you to think uniquely. I wanted you to think out of box, but I also wanted you to think alone, right? This e-process. Once the particular process you have idealized an idea, then I wanted you, then I asked you to discuss with your colleagues or else with your teammates, so that actually they can also come up with some brilliant ideas. They can also actually suggest you some improvisation in your ideas, right? For that I have coined a particular word for that also. That term I called it as dot, sorry, not a dot, dot what approach, dot what approach. And I ask you to have a discussion with your colleagues and come up with the idea. For example, the idea can be to increase your, the idea is not to increase your income by 5%. However, the idea is to improvise the present living methodology of the end user. The idea is to provide an improved way of living to the end user. So the entire goal through through the entire thinking process will be human centered, or else our entire goal is not to increase the business goals, however to provide the maximum like empathy on the end user side, so that they can have a better living mechanism, better living society. Now in this particular class we are going to concentrate on the development of the prototype, so that we can have test if we satisfy the major requirements that we have identified on the previous step, then we can go to the implement decision step. Directly we cannot go to the implement decision step. That is not advisable, as it may sometimes it may backfire your ideas, or sometimes you may end up spending much more amount of money than required. So it's highly advisable for us to develop the strategy into a small prototype, and then finally evaluate that prototype whether it meets to the particular identified problems which we have done in the previous step, and then go for the testing procedure as per your lab requirements, and then finally the implementation step. So these are the things which we are going to study in this particular class. So the step 4 is the development of a prototype. Prototype, while developing the prototype, the main objective is to meet the requirements that we have identified after the severe brainstorming sessions that have been held in our previous sessions with the end users as well as experts. And also the prototype should be very less costly. There is no need for you to go to the original model. Instead, the particular model which you are developing should have all the functions of the original model. However, the size can be of miniature size. Size can be very small in small in the space acquisition, so that ultimately our aim is to produce a very less cost model instead of the full-blown model, because we are trying our we are trying to produce a model that will satisfy the final requirement. However, we don't expect it to be completely working in the first trial itself. We don't expect that. Okay, and that is the reason we go for the prototype. Because as I said, designing is an iterative process. It is a heavily iterative process at this particular stage, heavily iterative. You should be open-minded, broad-minded in understanding the loopholes, or else logical mistakes, or else in case if you find any problem with the satisfactory accomplishment of the identified goals from the experts as well as end users, you should be broad-minded, so that you should be also in a position to restart the entire prototyping approach as well, right? So that is the reason we have to keep the prototype which we have developed with as low as possible. I'm talking about the cost. We should keep the cost as low as possible, right? So that is also one of the idea. At the same time, we should produce a solution that will meet all the requirements that we have identified in the previous brainstorming sessions, right? So as I said, the goal is to start with a low fidelity version. Low fidelity version is like you should satisfy all the requirement. However, the prototype can be of mini in nature, right? So as I said, over the time, based on the feedback, because I told you it's a heavily iterative process, this particular thing. So you develop you just develop a prototype, again go to your colleagues, have a I told you, like a dot-vote approach. It's simply this actual dot-vote approach is nothing but having a tea with your friend and have a mild discussion with them, take the feedback, again whether their requirements have been met, whether the particular prototype is working sensibly, logically, or else any logical holes are there. These kind of things will be identified very easily in the dot-vote approaching system, or else in case if you have a discussion with your friends, or else the colleagues, especially those who understand your problem, right? So as I said earlier, the prototype mechanism which you have developed should be of as low as possible. The cost should be as low as possible. So even a paper-based prototyping is also fine, unless it harms your original intentions, your identified problems. Actually, paper prototypes identified problems meet paper prototype തന്നെ മതി. ഇല്ല കുറച്ച് മോൾഡിങ്ങും കുറച്ച് മെഷീൻസും ലൈക്ക് ചെറിയ ചെറിയ ടൈപ്പ് മെഷീൻസും ചെറിയ കിലോ വാട്ടിലുള്ള മെഷീൻസും ചെറിയ ചെറിയ ആക്ച്വലി കോമ്പണൻസിൻ്റെ ആവശ്യം മസ്റ്റാണെന്ന് നിങ്ങൾ വിചാരിച്ചാൽ then you can go for that, but ultimately the cost should be lesser because that is every possibility that you can you may end up repeating this process multiple times. So you should not unnecessarily increase the cost of the budget, right? So this is a very major step, prototype development. It is often a good idea to work through the prototype internally to ensure that any significant gaps that exist are to be identified in this particular step itself before the final testing, before it reaches the ultimate end users. Okay. This testing procedure, once after the development of the prototype, it's merely an extension of the empathy process. It's just an extension of the empathy process because, as I said, end user is the king actually. End user determines your goal. Vice versa, it's not true. Okay. So end user is the king, and after having several brainstorming discussions with them, by making them very comfortable, then only we will be finally determining what our real goal is, right? അപ്പോൾ നമ്മളുടെ ഗോള് അവരുടെ നിന്നാണ് തുടങ്ങിയത്. അപ്പോൾ ടെസ്റ്റിംഗ് എവിടെ വെച്ച് നടത്തണം? അവരുടെ വെച്ച് തന്നെ നടത്താൻ വേണ്ടി വരും. ഓക്കെ അല്ലേ? സോ ദ എൻറ്റയർ തിങ്കിങ് പ്രോസസ് started from the end user. So the entire thinking process should end with the end user, right? I mean, thinking തുടങ്ങിയത് അവരുടെ നിന്നാണ്. സോ ഇതുണ്ട് പ്രോട്ടോടൈപ്പ് ടെസ്റ്റിങ്ങും അവർ വെച്ച് തന്നെ നമ്മൾ ചെയ്യേണ്ടി വരും. സോ ബോത്ത് ഷുഡ് ബി ഇൻവോൾവ് വിത്ത് ദ സെയിം സെറ്റ് ഓഫ് എൻഡ് യൂസേഴ്സ്. മറക്കല്ലേത് സെയിം സെറ്റ് ഓഫ് ദ എൻഡ് യൂസേഴ്സ് ആണ്. Or else we can call them as consumers. So here we have basically we'll have one-to-one approach actually the best ആണ് ഇത്. പക്ഷേ സമയം ഇല്ലെങ്കിൽ one to manyയും കുഴപ്പമില്ല. One to many means like a room will be arranged, your prototype will be displayed, you can make you can invite the people over there. As I said, the same end users ആണ്, വേറെ ആൾക്കാരല്ല, same end users ആണ്. So when you are meeting an end user named X, you should I'm sorry, actually what I'm trying to say is say for example this X is the name of the end user, right? So ഈ end user നിന്ന് കളക്ട് ചെയ്ത ഡേറ്റ റിപ്പോർട്ട് നമ്മളുടെ കയ്യിൽ ഉണ്ടാവണം അവസാനത്തെ ഡിസ്കഷൻ സമയത്തിൽ. ചുമ്മാ വെറുതെ എക്സിന് പറയുന്ന ആൾക്കാരന് വെറുതെ നമ്മൾ ആക്ച്വലി ഡിസ്കസ് ചെയ്യാൻ പാടില്ല. അപ്പോൾ ഇറ്റ് വിൽ demoralize the confidence of this particular X actually. Okay, once you are inviting an X to the particular room for evaluating the prototype, you should have all the data that have been collected on first step. Step 1 ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നല്ലോ, ഇത് സ്റ്റെപ്പ് 5 അല്ലേ? അപ്പോൾ സ്റ്റെപ്പ് 1 നിങ്ങൾ കളക്ട് ചെയ്ത ഡേറ്റാവും കാര്യങ്ങളും എല്ലാ കാര്യങ്ങളും ആ സമയത്തിൽ ഉണ്ടാവണം, മാറി പോകാൻ പാടില്ല, ശ്രദ്ധിക്കണം അതിൽ. ഓക്കെ അല്ലേ? സോ 1-to-1 അപ്രോച്ച് ഫസ്റ്റ് സ്റ്റേജ് ഓഫ് പ്രോട്ടോടൈപ്പ് ചെക്കിങ്ങിൽ ആവശ്യമാണ്. അതിനുശേഷം സേ ഫോർ എക്സാമ്പിൾ യു ഹാവ് ഡെവലപ്ഡ് 3 or 4 times the prototype. അതിനുശേഷം പതുക്കെ നമ്മൾ 1-to-1 കുറച്ച് ടൈം കൺസ്യൂമിങ് അല്ലേ? അപ്പോൾ 1-to-many ആയാലും കുഴപ്പമില്ല. പക്ഷേ ഫസ്റ്റ് 1-to-1 ചെയ്യുന്നതാണ് ബെറ്റർ, so that we can have the in-depth understanding of the requirement of the particular end user, right? So once after having the discussion with the end user, it is time to revisit the problem statement because as I told, it's a highly iterative process actually. So each by one point actually 1, 2, 3 നമ്മൾ ലിസ്റ്റ് ഇട്ടിട്ടുണ്ടല്ലോ ആദ്യം തന്നെ ഏതൊക്കെ പ്രോബ്ലംസ് ഐഡന്റിഫൈ ചെയ്തു. 1 by 1 ആയിട്ട് നമ്മൾ പ്രൊപ്പോസ് ചെയ്യുന്ന ഈ പ്രോട്ടോടൈപ്പ് കൊണ്ട് അവരുടെ ആവശ്യം മീറ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ടോ, whether it is resolving all the identified frustrations or else identified requirements, ഇതൊക്കെ നമ്മൾ ശ്രദ്ധിക്കണം. ഓക്കെ അല്ലേ? സപ്പോസ് അങ്ങനെ നടന്നില്ലെങ്കിൽ അതിനെ നോട്ട് എടുക്കണം. We have to note it down. By testing, we are seeking to learn that if we have made an impact on the way someone feels about the problem at the hand. So it gives as a real control of the problem, okay, so since you have the real control of the problem, we can know for sure whether we have improved our already existing model or not. So ഇതാണ് വളരെ important. Okay അല്ലേ? ഇത് നെക്സ്റ്റ് ടോപ്പിക്കാണ്. പക്ഷേ എല്ലാം ആൾമോസ്റ്റ് ലൈക്ക് ഐ മീൻ കൊണ്ടുപോലെ തന്നെ ഉണ്ടാവും. തിങ്കിങ് പ്രോസസ്സ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ഞാൻ ആൾറെഡി പറഞ്ഞായിരുന്നു, ലൈക്ക് വളരെ നാരോ ആയിട്ട് നമ്മൾ തിങ്ക് ചെയ്യാൻ പാടില്ല. ഓക്കെ അല്ലേ? സോ അടുത്ത ടോപ്പിക്ക് ഇറ്റ്സ് ദിസ് വൺ, കൺവേർജന്റ് തിങ്കിങ് വേഴ്സസ് ഡൈവേർജന്റ് തിങ്കിങ്. Convergent thinking is nothing but it's a term coined by Joy Paul Guilford. He says it's the ability to give very accurate answer for standard questions. പക്ഷേ നമ്മളുടെ പ്രോബ്ലം എന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ അക്യൂറേറ്റ് ആൻസർ ഒരിക്കലും നമുക്ക് കിട്ടില്ല. നമ്മളുടെ പ്രോബ്ലം എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് വളരെ ഡൈവേർജന്റ് നേച്ചറാണ്, വളരെ സ്പെസിഫിക് അല്ല. അത് ഇപ്പോൾ ഫോർ എക്സാമ്പിൾ സ്കൂളിൽ നമ്മളുടെ അടുത്തുള്ള ചോദിക്കുന്നുണ്ട്, വാട്ട് ഈസ് 2 into 3? What is 2 into 3 means immediately we can tell the answer what it is. And they are asking you to define voltage or current or something like that. Very specifically we can answer. പക്ഷേ നമ്മളുടെ പ്രോബ്ലം എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ഒരു ഡൈവേർജന്റ് നേച്ചറാണ്. സോ കൺവേർജന്റ് തിങ്കിങ് ഇവിടെ വർക്കാവില്ല. വാട്ട് വി റിക്വയർ ഈസ് ഡൈവേർജന്റ് തിങ്കിങ്. Right? Because we required, as I pointed out, we required many solutions to the identified problem. And this many solution, out of this many solution, many may be the wrong answer, many may be the correct answer, but our job is to find the best one, optimal one. We call it as optimal solution. Solutions ഉണ്ടാവും, അവിടെ കുറേ സൊല്യൂഷൻസ് ഉണ്ടാവും, പക്ഷേ നമ്മളുടെ ആവശ്യം എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ഓപ്റ്റിമൽ സൊല്യൂഷൻ ആണ്. ഓക്കെ അല്ലേ? ഈ ഓപ്റ്റിമൽ സൊല്യൂഷൻ എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് കൺവേർജന്റ് തിങ്കിങ്ങിൽ കിട്ടില്ല, അങ്ങനെ നടക്കില്ല. ഓക്കെ അല്ലേ? ത്രൂ ഡൈവേർജന്റ് തിങ്കിങ് ഓൺലി ഇറ്റ് ഈസ് പോസിബിൾ. So it is, as I said, it is a process of devising more than one solution for a given problem. Okay, and also it refers to the thought process of generating very creative solutions. ഇത് കണ്ട, യെസ് പ്ലൂറൽ ആണ്, ക്രിയേറ്റീവ് സൊല്യൂഷൻസ് ആണ്. പക്ഷെ പ്രോബ്ലം സ്റ്റേറ്റ്മെന്റ്സിന് ഇട്ടില്ല. മനസ്സിലായോ? It could be a singular problem. The problem identified can be a single problem. But what we are proposing is multiple solutions. Okay, multiple solution the avashyam undu avade. Appo multiple solution means that requires divergent thinking, right? So divergent thinking requires diary of ideas. That means the idea should flow actually. Idea should be free flowing. You should not have any kind of restrictions. നമ്മൾ already കണ്ടതാണ്. Any kind of restrictions. Even cost won't be a matter at this particular stage. Even cost won't be a matter. Time കോസ്റ്റും ടൈമും ഇതൊന്നും നമുക്കിപ്പോൾ മാറ്റർ ഇല്ല. സ്പേസ് കോംപ്ലക്സിറ്റി എന്ന് പറയുമല്ലോ, ഇതൊക്കെ നമുക്ക് ഇപ്പോൾ ഒരു വലിയ ഇഷ്യൂവേ ഇല്ല. ബിക്കോസ് നമ്മൾ ഇവിടെ തിങ്കിങ് ചെയ്യുന്നതാണ്. അപ്പോൾ തിങ്കിങ് സമയത്ത് നമുക്ക് വി നീഡ് എ ഡയറി ഓഫ് ഐഡിയാസ്. ആക്ച്വലി ഐ കോൾ ഇറ്റ് ആസ് ഡയറി ഓഫ് ഐഡിയാസ്, റൈറ്റ്? സോ ഫ്രീ ഫ്ലോയിങ് ലൈക്ക് ഐഡിയാസ് വരണം. അതിൽ നമ്മൾ ഒരു ബ്ലോക്കേജ് ഉണ്ടാവാൻ പാടില്ല. സോ ഇറ്റ് ഹാപ്പൻസ് ഇൻ എ നോൺ ലീനിയർ മാനർ, right? Non-linear manner means creating alternative solutions for a single problem at the same time. Actually നമ്മൾ തിങ്ക് ചെയ്യുമ്പോൾ തന്നെ ഇങ്ങനെ സ്ട്രാറ്റജി, ആൾട്ടർനേറ്റീവ് സ്ട്രാറ്റജി ആയിട്ട് നമ്മൾ തിങ്ക് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റണം. ഓക്കെ അല്ലേ? സോ ഹിയർ മൾട്ടിപ്പിൾ ഐഡിയാസ് ക്യാൻ ഹാപ്പൺ അറ്റ് ദ സെയിം ടൈം rather than one by one. Okay അല്ലേ? So whatever we are having, whatever we are we could able to identify through the divergent thinking, we should note it down in a diary, or else we should note it down in a small sheet of paper. And as I said, it should be spontaneous. Okay, it should not be gradual. It should be spontaneous. Adondana any word used in the diary and parayana word used to. So this can have some unexpected connections developed with the between the ideas, as well as your problems. Okay. In our previous slide, the most important thing what we have identified is, as I said, free flow of ideas on a divergent thinking means it is also non-linear thinking on a that means non-linear thinking means same time varieties of ideas varnadana non-linear thinking nu parayana the same time okay multiple ideas almost similar meaning, unexpected connections because namal same time multiple solutions ingana like free flowing at namal think chedu vachittunde. Now ee multiple ideas nu parayanadu didn't have any restrictions at all. That means what, ഇതിനെ നമ്മളുടെ പ്രോബ്ലത്തിന് കണക്ഷൻസും ഉണ്ടാവാം, അൺഎക്സ്പെക്റ്റഡ് ട്വിസ്റ്റും ഉണ്ടാവാം. സോ ലൈക്ക് നമ്മൾ ഇവിടെ ബ്രേക്ക് ഇടുന്നില്ല, ഇവിടെ റെസ്ട്രിക്ഷൻസ് വയ്ക്കണില്ല. റെസ്ട്രിക്ഷൻസ് വയ്ക്കാത്തത് കൊണ്ട് നമ്മൾ അന്വേഷിക്കാത്ത രീതിയിൽ ലൈക്ക് നമ്മൾ എക്സ്പെക്ട് ചെയ്യാത്ത രീതിയിൽ നമ്മളുടെ പ്രോബ്ലത്തിനെ കുറിച്ച് ചില കണക്ഷൻസ് നമുക്ക് കിട്ടാനുള്ള ഒരു ചാൻസ് ഉണ്ടാവും. ബിക്കോസ് വി ആർ നോട്ട് പുട്ടിങ് എനി ബ്രേക്ക് ഇൻ ദ development of the ideas. Okay, we are not providing any strict restrictions here because we are in the development of the idea. Okay, so this idea may or may not be connected to the strictly connected to the developed solutions. Okay, sometimes it can give you some unexpected connections to your problem. So that is the advantage of it. Look, a psychologist, the one who studies the brain thinking pattern, all those things and all among the people, they have clearly defined the semantic networks of the people. Actually, semantic network means neural arrangements of the people. So our the classification, I mean, nammalde chinda undallo, like nammalde thinking power undallo, based on the thinking level they have identified two types of people who have two types of semantic networks, two types of neural networks in their brain. One is the human who has the flat neural connection or else flat semantic network. Another one is the one who thinks cheaply have this particular things, cheap semantic network kind of connection. So according to the psychologists, they have come up with a startling actual revelation. They have identified flat thinkers. Flat thinkers, as I said, they will be having flat semantic networks. ഇവർക്ക് കൂടുതൽ concepts, for example, they may not be good in concepts. Actually, they may not good in logics. They may not be good in their even in their education. There is a chance for it, right? They may not be good in their logic. Other meaning that they may not be knowing the proper definitions, blah blah blah, etc. They may not be knowing that, right? However, they can contribute a serious amount of ideas. As far as our problem is concerned, they can be more creative. The reason is they are not bounded by any restrictions. They are not bounded by any logics. They are not bounded by the theories what they have studied. Okay, so once they understand the problem, scientists have found that, scientists means I am talking about psychologists. The psychologists have identified that these people who are very restricted in their ideology, or very restricted in the logical level of thinking, they can be very creative, very proactive, and they can come up with very brilliant solutions. Actually, they can come up with some brilliant solutions. If flat networks okay, flat networks since they are not bounded by logics, they can they can come up with a very brilliant solution. At the same time, the people with the steep networks, who are more logical, who are more bookworm, who can they can talk about the concepts endlessly. They know the concepts really very well when compared to this person's, the flat persons, actually flat networked persons. But still they are bounded by the concept. That is a severe restriction, actually. It's a major restriction. Okay, so hence the psychologists have actually have concluded divergent level of thinking require flat networks. Since they are not bounded by any logic, so they have concluded divergent thinkers require flat networks. So in our problem of identifying the best solutions, we require flat thinkers, right? Okay, with this the module 2 is over. Once after the test is over, because we are having the series test very shortly actually as per the principal's order. So once the series test is over, we'll be having the third module. Thank you very much.